So moving on, factor 5, if you are a hazmat carrier in a regular compliance review, and a general compliance review, not a full-on investigation. So there is a difference between a hazmat investigation and a compliance review. So you're going to have a compliance review, possibly with a hazmat a special agent or a special investigator that's a specialist, a hazmat specialist. They're going to do something else. A regular compliance review, most of those investigators are not hazmat experts. They're not hazmat specialists, so they go through the very, very basics of hazmat. They're going to only when hazardous transported, placardable transported materials. They're going to check for the endorsements for the CDLs. They're going to look to make sure that the drivers that are operating those hazmat loads, the placardable loads, have proper endorsements for hazmat. They're going to check for the mandatory training. They're going to make sure that you did those 4 or 5 trainings on those drivers within the 90 days and then every 3 years thereafter. And then they're going to look through your bill of lading retention period. They're not going to look at every single bill of lading. Now, if they know a little bit about hazmat, they can. Or if they're a hazmat specialist, then they can look through everything. But it is completely different. If you have somebody, if you get a letter saying, we are going to do a compliance review, and the person that's going to come and do the compliance review is a special agent for, like a specialist, for a hazmat specialist, I would make sure that you definitely call somebody who is a hazmat specialist consultant to go through all your stuff if you're not very comfortable within that scenario, because they don't just do this little bit. But in a typical compliance review, if they're not a hazmat specialist, then you're going to get this basic stuff for the hazmat carriers. And then factor 6. Factor 6 is accidents. They're going to check to see that it contains every DOT recordable accident. So your roster, like I said, you have to have rosters for everything. You have to have your driver roster, you have to have your vehicle maintenance roster, or your vehicle rosters, your trailer rosters, but you also have to have an accident register. So your accident register is going to have every crash on there that is DOT recordable. They do not want to see every incident, every time somebody cut their finger, or, you know, every workers' comp claim incident. OSHA, DOT, completely separate. They don't care about your OSHA incidents. What they care about is your DOT recordable crashes. So in one of our sessions, we talk about the recordable crashes, what it means, all of those things. They only want to see recordable crash. So if it's a commercial motor vehicle DOT recordable, that's what should be on those registers, nothing else. Don't give them any more than they ask for. They don't want to see all your incidents. But if you hand them a list of every single workers' comp claim or every single incident your company's had over the last 3 years, only 2 of those were DOT recordable, but you've got 50 things on there, they're going to be like, wow, this company has some issues. It's just going to make them want to dig more. So only have your DOT recordable crashes on those accident registers. And they're going to look to see that the register is kept for 3 years from the date of each incident. I tend to have 1 register for every single year. So each year I have a different piece of paper. Hopefully it's empty. Hopefully there's nothing on there, but you still have to have that document. You still have to have, if you're still using paper, if you're not using a digital platform, you still have to have that document, even though it may be empty, to show them, yes, I have this register and no, there's been no accidents. That's all they're going to want to see. And they're going to want to make sure it matches what is on the SMS report. So if you have 4 crashes on your SMS report, but you only have 3 on your register or on your roster, they're going to say, what about this other crash? It's DOT recordable. You're going to have to be able to explain that. And they're going to want the most recent or most recent 12 months. That's typically what they look for. Whenever they're looking at accidents and when they're doing their rating, when they're assessing your score, your point system for the accidents, what's going to be used against you in that compliance review, they're looking at the last 12 months. They're not looking over the last 2 years or 3 years. They're actually only looking at the last 12 months. So what's been going on in the last 12 months? You cannot go over a 1.5%. If you go over 1.5%, you're automatically put into a conditional rating. And at that point, you're for that factor. Each factor has its own rating. So you'll have conditional, unsatisfactory, satisfactory, satisfactory, unsatisfactory. And how they score it, whether you get a full-on rating of satisfactory or unsatisfactory rating, depends on each of those factors and whether you got a satisfactory rating in each one. Record keeping.